Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Tim Donner, Andrew Moran, John Klar, and Dave Patterson. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. No one in this whole wide world can drive by a cow without acknowledging said cow. It's in our DNA. Cows are a beautiful gift from God above, with big brown eyes, peaceful demeanor, byproducts that feed us and provide us with cheese and cream. So why are progressives hating on bovines? Somehow, the common cow, not giant cities belching fumes and chemicals, are to blame for all of our climate woes. Panelist John Klar, our newbie guy with more political stripes than a zebra, is going to fill us in on the war against common cow sense.
Well, you'll forgive me if I get passionate in defense of my cows. You all know that I raise grass-fed cows here in Vermont. I'm also an attorney, so I have a certain penchant for logic, and that has been abandoned in the attack on our bovines. So I'm happy that more people are waking up to one of the biggest lies ever foisted upon us by the so-called climate cultists, I call them, but perhaps we should understand that they've been horrified by a false claim, including against cows. Cows are actually the solution to many of these problems, and there are a lot of lies being told about them. And then vegans, we won't attack the vegans in present company, but anyway, we can understand that switching over from cows to GMO crops or foods is not helping the planet or reducing carbon dioxide and is not good for human health or otherwise. Cows that are properly grazed on land actually rebuild soils that are being destroyed by vegetable crops. Cow manure replaces synthetic fertilizer, which will otherwise need to be manufactured to replace that manure. So when we hear about cow gases, we don't hear about cow manure and urine, which are essential for agriculture and have been for 10,000 years. And solar panels, called blades of grass, use photosynthesis to convert into meat. We can't digest grass. Cows are already a factory that do not need to be replaced by synthetic technological machinations that will never work at scale. But there's a lot of money for those venture capitalists and others who are investing in these things. But it is an almost pathological lie, and ultimately makes one wonder: are they really that unintelligent, or do they have other nefarious motives against our cows?
And I think we know what the answer is to
I think so too.
that rhetorical question.
Well, and I
Dave?
don't need, as a lawyer, I don't need to prove that extra step. I don't need to prove that it's bad either way. And I don't have to prove a conspiracy to prove that it is patently false and quite slanderous of cows, by the way. And many companies are actually, even large companies, are trying to shift to regenerative agriculture. And then they get sued by the New York Attorney General for claiming it can't be done. She clearly, as a lawyer, knows nothing about agriculture or food. And so we're going to see more and more Americans, especially beef prices hit another record high in America, highest ever yesterday. And this is still early season. It's going to get expensive, and it's a new kind of inflation when it hits food.
Just trying to get rid of everybody and your cows, John. Dave, when you were skulking around in the Bush administration, was this ever a thing? Like, did people stand around the water coolers and whisper, "Hey, did you hear about that? Cow flatulence going to ruin the world"?
No, Sarah, as we do today, we had Democrats that fill that function. But like all who take up residence, I think, in the lunatic fringe, those taking exception to cows and their alimentary canal processes really need to assess their own contributions to society. Besides being a possible source of protein themselves, without the presence of cows. But it is just another example of where the scam of climate change has gone overboard. And every time they come out, those who want to warn us about the presence of an ever increasing temperature, every time they come out in 2 or 3 years, they're proven wrong. 12 years ago, we were supposed to be non-existent because, the father of the internet told us that it was just a matter of a few years when we would all be
Oh,
gone.
people are still saying it's going to be 12 years. Everybody keeps using 12 years in 12 years. I'm like,
Well,
it
I
started 12
know.
years ago.
And so I think that actually is probably the most accurate thing that they say, because 40 or 50 or 112 years from now, it'll still be the same.
The
All right,
twisted
I'm gonna
lip.
I'm gonna pivot to the vegan because we have to talk vegan here. Andrew, as much as you are anti yummy cheeseburgers and cream in my coffee and cheese, just cheese. When did all this cow flatulence start to become the main reason against climate promoters?
Actually, my question to Andrew would be, Andrew, how long have you had this problem?
I can cure you. I can help you.
Well, I would say that this is a very moving discussion we're having here on C5. It's very flatulating to have this great discussion on climate change here. But to Sarah's initial question, it's so funny the evolution or devolution of the climate change discussion, because it went from abandoning coal-fired power plants and no longer driving gas-powered cars to metastasized into stopping cow farts, eating the bugs, and worshiping Greta Thunberg. And speaking of what sassy Sarah said, is that Greta Thunberg said that the world was going to end in June 2023. Nearly a year later, the world is still happening. So, all these predictions have just fallen flat on their faces. There's a great pundit, Alex Epstein, and he was talking about all these catastrophizing over the years. And one thing I saw just today was that this one man said that the only place in the world that are going to be habitable by the year 2020 is Australia and Western Europe. And this prediction was made in, guess what, 1970. So all this catastrophizing, all these predictions, all these proposals are asinine, and they're never right. This is all climate change is right now is a way to control the public, to wage war on a growing economy, and to make sure everyone is just equally miserable. That's all what climate change is. All these. So just one thing quickly. Our Canadian Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, he was asked recently, when will the positive effects of carbon taxes, make their way to the environment? And he said, well, probably we're looking at around 2060. How the heck does he know that carbon tax are going to benefit the environment by 2060? He doesn't know. He's just making it up. He's passing gas himself when all these people say carbon taxes are the solution to our problems. Canada has a carbon tax, and now the new debate is how much should we raise it by? And everyone is suffering, prices are rising, and Trudeaunomics is horrible for Canada. And you guys
all right,
have
Andrew,
carbon taxes.
You got to calm your rant, buddy. You're getting all red in the face, and Tim's starting to shake his head. And
yeah, this is my rant.
Apparently, Tim, I think Tim's got something to say, and I'm going to let him jump on you.
I kind of have a question. And I say this as someone who happens to believe in God. My question is, if they're not here to produce meat and cheese and milk and cream, why were cows put on earth? What's their purpose, if not to provide all the things I just said? Is it just an anomaly that they happen to be there, but they should be taken out of play in providing all the things that they provided for this society over all these years? That's my first thing, is if they're not for meat and cream and cheese, why did God put cows on earth? Maybe I sound naive.
God put cows on earth before he put man on earth. So,
well, that's true. That's true. We could drill down even further on that. But beyond that, the illogic of the climate change extremists, goes something like this, that we have to reduce our carbon footprint. We have to take extreme steps to be green at all costs for the sake of being green. And yet, best I can tell, we sort of share the same atmosphere with every other country on earth. So if we are using extreme measures to combat climate change, and China and India and every other carbon spewing nation is not taking those steps, then what's the point of us doing it? Because it's not going to make any difference when doomsday comes in 2035, 2040. It reminds me of
no, it's 2023, remember?
There's one religion in particular that keeps predicting the end of the world. I think they've done it 3 or 4 separate times, and each time it doesn't happen, they try to explain away, and they keep the flock and tell them, okay, well, we were wrong 4 times, but this time we really mean it.
All right,
socialist,
it's
not real socialism that's causing all this agony. It's the wrong form of socialism.
I think that when we talk about climate change, we oftentimes forget that the consequences of the climate change activists who are trying to make life better for everyone have done precisely the opposite for the underdeveloped nations who simply have no capacity to accept or accommodate all of this green stuff, and their lives have become far more miserable. And it's really pathetic and tragic as to what we have done as developed nations on underdeveloped nations, the very people that you're trying to help.
Yeah, look at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka adopted the whole Greek organic movement, organic farming under Rajapaksa. And within a year, you have starvation, people are dying, people are poverty is soaring, people can't farm anymore. Yes, I'm a vegan, I eat green, but to have that for the whole planet, it's just not feasible at all. The amount of chicken, how much meat you can get from chicken is a lot greater than you get from a field of lettuce or delicious kale or delicious chard or delicious Brussels sprouts or delicious
none of those things are delicious. None of those things are delicious.
Well, those are things that, let me put it in context for you, Andrew. Those are the things that people actually avoid eating.
But cows eat them.
And
I said people. I said humans.
Are you calling me a cow? Is that what Davis called me a cow?
Humans, Dave, not bovine.
Yeah, by my wife. My wife will go.
So to add, by the way, you can see the fraud of it because they're not going after people's lawnmowers. Actually, NASA has published studies suggesting that lawnmowers are a net carbon sink. They just exclude the manufacturing of the lawnmowers or the gas that is put in them. They ignore all the chemical pollution. They're doing the same with cows, by the way, and the synthetic fertilizer alternatives that emit nitrous oxide, which is 270 times more potent than carbon dioxide, according to their own science. They don't go after dogs and cats who are consuming 25% of our meat. Heaven forbid you go after Fifi or Fido. They come after me because I'm a marginalized minority as a cow farmer. And there's also, again, a huge difference between confinement raised cows and traditionally raised cows. All of these are lost in this fear mongering, bovine slandering, and it's not just cows. And of course, it's absolutely impossible. They're proving they cannot produce synthetic alternatives at scale or cost. And in fact, the environmental costs in every case are much higher than these cows that Tim points out God gave us. And God pointed out to Adam when he fell in Genesis that you will work by the sweat of your brow. And later we're told if we start to worship idols made of our own hands, like synthetic meat and faraway meat substitutes, then in fact, we may suffer the consequences. It's called famine. And so here we are.
Well, perhaps progressives would be better off leaving our country cows and way of life and just stay in the overpopulated places they stack up in like Legos. Yes, us farmers and ranchers enjoy loads of fresh air because we have trees. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all as well. Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.